you guys just move up a little, please.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. I just want to be here today to support this effort of ranked choice voting in Duluth, because I think it's important to the future, not only of Duluth, but to Minnesota and quite frankly our country. And I'm a little bit disappointed with some of the rhetoric that's going around about ranked choice voting. I mean, quite frankly, when you look at what's happening in our community and the discussion that's revolving around it, this is really one of the main principles behind ranked choice voting, is to try to get away from this negative rhetoric that develops around particular issues. So I just want to bring some attention to a couple of points. Two of the reasons why I'm really personally supporting ranked choice voting, and one has to do with the voter turnout in our primary elections. And historically, we have seen really fairly low turnout. I think on an average, we're still below 20%. There are years when we have really good primary turnouts, and if those approach 40%, we're pretty excited about that. But still, that's 40%. So if I look at the 20% that makes up this attendance at our primaries, and look at the demographics of that group, over half of them are age 50 and older. Over half of our primary voters are age 50 and older. Not that there's anything wrong with that demographic, but we're excluding a large group of our population. I don't think that our turnout at our primaries reflects our community diversity, and I certainly don't think it reflects our community demographics. So to me, that's one good reason why we shift away from this primary vote and move into a ranked choice voting with one general election. And the other reason has to do with negative campaigning. And we don't necessarily see a lot of that here in Duluth, but it exists. If you're paying attention to campaigns, whether it be local, school board, state races, state senate, House representatives, there's negative campaigning that happens all the time. And I think one of the key things for an elected official or a candidate that's going into a ranked choice vote election is that it forces you to steer away from the negative, because people by and large do not like negative campaigning, and they don't like people that attack other candidates. And if you're forced to kind of reach out to these voters that you maybe haven't connected with before in hopes of at least securing maybe their second choice vote, it kind of eliminates and levels the playing field on this negative campaigning. So those are really two of the big reasons why I bought into ranked choice voting early. And I think part of the thing that's going around the community, it's being said, is that this is a solution in search of a problem. And the reality is, if we're allowing 20% or less of our voters to choose, narrow our group of candidates down to 2, that's a problem. If we're promoting, anger and hostility amongst our campaigns, that's a problem. I think that this takes a step in the right direction and moves us toward a healthy campaign that's focused on issues. And I would make that argument to anybody in the community, and I think that's why I'm supporting this. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll turn it over to Senator Reinert.
Hi everyone, Senator Reinert. Also want to welcome you today, especially Lake Superior College, and thank you for participating in this press conference with Representative Simonson and myself. And it's interesting, as I think about being here today, I've known that Representative Simonson was supportive. I've been supportive since my days actually on the Duluth City Council, but in talking back and forth about the press conference, we really talked to each other about our reasons for being supportive, and they're not the same, but they sort of go towards the same issue. You just heard Representative Simonson talk about his interest in engaging more voters, especially younger voters. My perspective primarily comes from my role as a civics teacher. I've spent my entire education career working in the area of civics, and for me, it's about choice and meaningful choices. And I'll just give you an example. I was talking with a professional friend just last week who started out the conversation by saying, well, I know that you're active in the DFL, the Democratic Party, so I know that means that you don't support ranked choice voting. The implication that this is a disadvantage to the 2 major political parties. And I said, no, that's not accurate, and I think it's not accurate because you misunderstand where my heart and my first priority lies, and that is as a teacher. Somebody who is in the classroom trying to engage our in my case, our next generation of citizens, but really an interest in all of our citizens. And so when I come at this from that perspective, I am open to any and all options that create more choice for voters. ranked choice voting does that, and there are certainly other ones. And Minnesota has historically been a place of experimentation, a place where we try out different things. And so when we think about something like ranked choice voting, what does it do? It helps. Right now we have a trend that leads us towards less options. We see an ever increasing number of candidates running unopposed at all levels, including local. I think right now we have, of course, 4 years ago, a mayor who ran unopposed. Many would argue that we're in a mayoral race that has little opposition. We have multiple city councilors running unopposed in this election cycle, and that does not create a vibrant and a meaningful election process. If we want to engage more people, we provide more meaningful choices. And frankly, it's not just even about the people and the choices on the ballot, it's about the issues. If we want to have meaningful, engaged conversations about the issues throughout a campaign process, and a conversation that doesn't end on primary day, as Representative Simonson alluded to, you have all these people in that conversation. And while they may not all be viable contenders at the end of the day, their contribution to the conversation creates a more dynamic and a more involved process. So probably one of the things I have heard that I've been most frustrated with is that this is all in Duluth. We want you to vote no on this ranked choice voting argument because we have great voter participation already. And that's great, and that's true. One of my points of pride is that, in the last 2 and maybe 3 presidential election cycles, not just Minnesota, but Duluth has had the highest voter participation rate anywhere. Fantastic. But what does it mean to have a high voter participation rate when there aren't meaningful choices? And that's, to me, what it is all about. And I think ranked choice voting helps us provide meaningful choices to people. So I'm happy to answer other questions. I know Representative Simonson is as well. And maybe I know we have somebody else just coming here, while we let them have a chance to get set up, we could hear from Manny, Houle, and then any or all of us could take questions from any of the meetings.
Well, yes, my name is Manny Houle. I'm the state political director for the Minnesota Young DFL. And I'm here today, first off, the Minnesota Young DFL has historically supported ranked choice voting when it was down to cities. And with that in mind, we held a screening process up here in Duluth. I'm from Duluth, born and raised. And as director, I was like, I really want to bring this to Duluth. And so we held a screening committee with 17 young individuals, all from the city of Duluth. And we had speakers on RCV come and talk about the positive effects that it can have on our community. With these positive effects, we talked about how students, specifically college-age students, make up 10% of voting bloc here in Duluth. But usually about 1% are able to vote. This past primary, we saw that 18 students in Precinct 10, which is the campus, so UMD, voted out of over 1,000 that live on campus. We had 18 students. As young politicals, that is unacceptable for us. It's something where we feel like our voices are not at the table. So as proponents of ranked choice voting, those students sat down at the table and they said, unacceptable, we support ranked choice voting. So as a political director, I think that was really important to throw out there and to ensure that Minnesota Young Democrats are on board with ranked choice voting, and that it is not about this partisanship, it is about creating the dialogue with young people. This is about educating voters, the next generation, to make sure that the city of Duluth continues to move forward to diversify and exemplify the greatest things that we have to offer. So, yeah, that's my quick spiel.
So I think all of us are willing to take questions.